Centuries ago, amidst the fog of revolution and the thirst for independence, our founding fathers found solace in the warm embrace of coffee houses. These establishments were not just places for a hot brew. They became crucibles of free speech, where groundbreaking ideas were brewed, stirred, and served. In those hallowed halls, notions of democracy, liberty, and justice were not just idle chatter. They were debated with passion, shaped with precision, and forged into foundations of our great nation. Today, as we find ourselves amidst a whirlwind of social change, political divides, and pressing challenges, we need to rekindle that spirit. In these spaces, we can confront the most consequential social issues of our time, not as adversaries, but as allies in the quest for understanding and solutions. To the coffee houses willing to join this mission, let your doors be wide open, your atmosphere inviting, and your tables a meeting ground for diverse voices. In the spirit of unity, dialogue, and progress, let's come together and meet on the Coffeehouse Tour. Here's to the future brewed in the past.
Hello everyone, I'm J.R. Larson, and today we're at Dreamshot Films in Fairfax, Virginia, in the shadows of Washington, D.C. The Coffeehouse Tour is a community conversation. Our objective is to get people to talk together about the most consequential social issues our country faces today and consider bold solutions. These are conversations powered by citizens of all ages, social and economic statuses, different backgrounds and beliefs. Our goal is to bring in the constant variety of social topics and opinions in a timely and unbiased manner. On our program today, we'll discuss the topic of education. Education is a cornerstone for individual and societal development, offering pathways to better opportunities, economic advancement, and informed citizenship. However, the landscape of education is fraught with challenges and disparities that raise significant social questions. Today we're going to discuss three critical questions as it relates to education. How can equitable access to quality education be ensured for all? What role should education play in preparing students for the future workforce? How can educational systems foster social, emotional, and ethical development? Let's meet today's debate team. Please welcome back Jason Thompson. Jason is an actor with over 20 years experience, as well as a professional sales training consultant for the health and fitness industry. He's an advocate for unfiltered and independent thinking. Please welcome back Ike Fessler. Ike is a recently retired military officer after 27 years in the Navy and Air National Guard. He resides in Northern Virginia and is passionate about the local community, military initiatives, and America's place in the world. And please welcome back Shalon Lazelle. Shalon is a proud mother of three. Shalon has worked as a registered nurse for 23 years. She holds associate and bachelor's degrees in nursing, as well as a master's degree in business administration. Shalon is an actor, model, published writer, YouTube podcaster, and beach lover. All right, we're going to dive right into our first topic. How can equitable access to quality education be ensured for all? Jason?
Throw me right in the fire, JR. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.
I approach this the same way I would approach a lot of issues, which is a holistic approach. Right? So I don't think it's as superficial as a lot of people or politicians how they approach it, which is, hey, let's just throw money at the problem. We need more tax money, more programs, that sort of thing. I don't think we address a lot of the underlying issues. For example, I live in Baltimore City, which is notorious for quality education. They spent 2023, this is true, a record of $22,424 per student. And what do they get for that return? 2/3 of the city schools earned the lowest possible performance ratings from the state, to give you an idea of what they got returned for the money. So throwing money at the problem is not always the solution. It goes deeper than that, in my opinion. I know a lot of teachers that are in that work in Baltimore City, and there's absenteeism like crazy, some up to 98%, literally. And it's hard to attract good teachers, let's be honest, or even students come to class when there's crime, and you go there, there's not quality education, you got to fear for yourself, fear. And, to me, if you're going to ensure the best education, we have to start moving in the direction of more dynamic education. Right? We must create alternatives. If you don't want to go to class, then we got to find mentorship programs, apprenticeships trade schools, something else that you can do to become a contributing citizen. So yeah, maybe school is not for you. Maybe the traditional methodology of learning is not for you. That's okay, but we need to find alternative ways of doing things. We need to create options. And I think that's the big one. It can't just be about throwing money about it. There's a reason why Asian students do so well, for example, because their culture promotes it. It prioritizes, keyword prioritize it. Our families and our school systems and our culture, the United States culture, needs to prioritize education, not just getting attention on social media.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for kicking us off. Ike, how can equitable access to quality education be ensured for all?
Well, I don't know how I can have a hotter take than what Jason just had, but I'll give a shot at it.
You can do it.
Thanks for having me again, JR. America is number 13 in the world when it comes to rankings on the educational scale. And we spend more than anyone else in any developed nation, and we are ranked 13th. How do we have more equitable education systems across the country? I believe it starts at home. Our parents have to take an interest in their children getting the education they need. Our parents need to sit at home. They need to sit side by side and do that homework with their kids. Versus, to Jason's point, what's popular on social media. Hot takes, TikTok links, clicks, favorabilities. That's not going to get you into college. That's not going to get you a paycheck. So I firmly believe it all starts at home. I once had a teacher tell me, I was a single father for a long time, and I had a teacher once tell me the parents that came to the parent-teacher conferences are not the ones that should come to the parent-teacher conferences. It's the parents that were not involved that should be coming because their children are falling way behind as far in relation to their peers. So our government can establish certain educational directives and structures, but if those students are not coming from a good home, whether it be they've got societal pressures, their parents are not at home because they're working 3 jobs, you have, what do they call it, keyhole kids, or what the term is, where they are coming home and babysitting themselves until the evening. They're having to cook for their siblings and take care of their siblings. So it's more than just what the government can do. It's what the family structure and the foundation built at home can do. And we can start there, I believe. But to Jason's point, throwing money at the problem has proven that it's not getting us anywhere in the world as to the rankings relative to that, because we're currently 13th in the world and we should be number 1. With the institutions that we have, people come from other countries here to get a world-class education. We need to start at home with our families being more involved.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ike. And Shalon, what do you think? How can equitable access to quality education be ensured for all?
Yes, thank you. Maybe I'll pivot a little bit, but I was going to focus on funding. We have consistently seen a decrease in funding from the federal level to our school systems, and I believe part of that is caused where our rankings are now. I do agree that parents nowadays are not as involved in their students' education as they should be, and a lot of them think of schools as being the babysitter club, But when we're talking about equitable access, since we have the decrease in federal funding, the states and the local school districts are having to fund that themselves, and a lot of that reliance is on taxpayer dollars, which there's very few states that have a that do not have a model like that, where they're relying on the tax revenue. There's too many variables in that. I believe that that provides that consistent level of funding. So I feel like those entities or those areas that are less resourced and underfunded and less populated, do not have the funds that they need to take care of providing good education. Also, in terms of equity, we're thinking about access to technology. If we have companies, larger companies, tech companies, especially those that are making computers, maybe we can think outside the box. They can donate computers to those underfunded and less resourced school districts. and maybe they get a tax break from that. So I think there's multi-factors into this, and we just need from a federal level that support and focus.
Some great ideas, truly. Go backs.
I would respectfully disagree with my dear friend yours.
Respectfully.
Since the United States Department of Education was created in 1979, America is in no better shape educationally around the world than they were prior to 1979. I think throwing money at the problem is not necessarily the solution to the problem, but I will agree that getting these large tech companies to buy into local communities and provide laptops and Wi-Fi in exchange for tax breaks could be a good idea.
After we come back from our break, we'll take a look at what role education should play in preparing students for the future workforce. And we're back. In this block, we're going to share ideas on what role should education play in preparing students for the future workforce. And in this block, we start with you, Shalon.
I think that should be the primary focus, right? If we have students that are in the school system and they come out graduation or not graduation, then what has that time been spent on? I think the United States and the Department of Education has a duty to our citizens to ensure that these students are coming out educated at minimum, to the point of having life prep as well as minimum comprehensive and literacy skills. And so I think our education system puts too many children in a box, and not everyone learns the same way. And so testing the way that it is structured now, I feel like it's inefficient. And I just feel like the students deserve more than what they're getting. If we talk about the data, to their point previously, the data does suggest that the United States is falling behind in education compared to other countries, students in other countries. And I think we are doing our children a disservice. We are not educating them the way that we should be. And especially in mathematics and science, our children are very much falling behind. And if the children are, and if our citizens are going to be competitive with children from other countries, then we need to continue ensuring that they are receiving those skills and that education as they are intended to. Educational programs, my last point, educational programs should be able to pivot based off of what the needs are for society. And I believe that educational leaders should be able to attend conferences that allow them to receive new information about technologies that are coming out.
Thank you, Shalon. Jason, what role should education play in preparing students for the future workforce?
All great points. Couldn't agree more. I think we talked about it before as well. If we can get away from the racket that is $200,000 loans that you take a lifetime to pay off, that'd be a start. There is some room for traditional education, but we have to start evolving. We have to start getting on the cutting edge. And yes, STEM education, technology, engineering, all that, very important. Creating alternatives is very important. But even in the now, do our kids know history? Do they know civics? Do they know how the government works? Do they know how to balance, the personal budgets, personal finance? Do they understand how to critically think? We're trying to prepare them for life in the workforce, how to add value to society, and that's how they're going to get paid, by contribution. Do they know how to use the scientific method? These are all things that we were taught. Why are they not being taught these things now? But they're being taught, German poetry or third wave feminism. That's wonderful. That should be part of the curriculum. But how does that enhance our society moving forward in terms of you're paying $150,000 for a student loan from God knows where? So we need to shift from that to a more dynamic education, in my opinion. Trade schools an alternative, apprenticeship programs, things like this. And I think, because I never got an idea of what my options are when I was going. I thought, okay, I got to take out this loan. Great, there are no alternatives. What are the options and alternatives? Do the kids even know this? I didn't. I know I didn't. And then we need to teach them how to bring value to society, right? As opposed to, you get this degree and it's your ticket. No. What value are you going to add? What emerging technologies like AI are coming out that we can take advantage of, right? And then last, but really first, in my opinion, this is a hot take. I think we need to go, I mean, it's just for all of society, particularly in the educational system, because it's not fair to do this to young minds. We get away from creating soft drone bees and social justice warriors with victim mentalities to a more dynamic, innovative, critically thinking, self-reliant, tough, capable, competent, contributing citizen. That's all I got to say.
Ike, what do you think? What role should education play in preparing students for the future?
Well, just to briefly comment on what Jason said in his common sense comments there just at the end. You know, they call it common sense, but it's so uncommon.
He was riffing.
We need to have a culture shift. In the opening segment, Jason talked about Asian countries that put a real focus on education. We need that in America. My best friend's wife is a elementary school teacher in a small community. Not only is she the principal, she's the fashion police, she's the guidance counselor, she is everything that she was not trained to be, but now she has to be because the foundation has not been built at home for some of these kids. Because some of the kids, these parents want to be their best friends and not their parents. They're not sitting them down at night and showing them how to add 2 + 2 = 4. They're not showing them how to write a proper sentence. They're not showing them how to balance a checkbook. And then I'll go to this hot take, if you will, as Jason said. Not everyone is cut out to go to college. We need plumbers and electricians and mechanics. Mike Rowe, who has built a career on advocating for trade schools and has a very robust scholarship program based on kids that don't want to go to college. But societal pressure has put on these kids, they are programmed that when they're in high school and the guidance counselor says, you have to go to college to get a job. That just is not true. We have to get away from that. We have to be able to tell the kids, you know what, I think you'd be an excellent HVAC technician or mechanic or plumber. And you can make great money doing those things. And you don't have to take out a cumbersome, crushing $200,000 loan that you'll be paying for the next 30 years. And the value of the loan will be $250,000 after those 30 years.
It's a crime.
So we need a culture change in America. We need to make education a real focus. And I'll go back to what I said in the first segment. It all starts at home.
We have a moment or two for some go backs.
Ike's point, there are so many different alternatives that a lot of people are just unaware of. I was unaware of it. You know, I mean, we got to get more dynamic, think outside the box. What is coming down the pipe? What is next for our society? AI that we talked about, that engineering. You don't have to just go to school and rack up student loans. There are different, we got YouTube. You can learn anything you want on YouTube. Yep. Why do I have to go to $150,000? They're teaching the same thing on YouTube. I'm just saying.
I think the overall foundation does need to have an overhaul of the principles of how we educate our children. I agree with all points said. We do have the alternatives. Are we aware of them? No. I was in the same shoes that you were in. Did I know that I had alternatives? No. So we do need an overhaul of the overall educational system in the United States.
You all have had some very compelling ideas on this topic. After we come back from break, we'll discuss how educational systems can foster social, emotional, and ethical development. We'll be right back. And we're back. In our final block, we look at education from a different angle. How can educational systems foster social, emotional, and ethical development? And Ike, you're number one.
Tough question, JR, but hopefully I can give an eloquent answer. So, we've had great discussions during this topic today, and our educational systems are broken. I think that's a prevailing thought throughout the entire process. We just got to get back to the foundational elements of our parents taking a real interest in our kids' development. Our kids are the leaders of tomorrow. Our kids are the presidents of tomorrow. They are the elected officials, the scientists, the engineers. They're going to be building the cars of the 21st and 22nd century. These education systems that we have to be equitable, ethical, and train our students not just how to read a book or to balance a checkbook, but how to be able to live in society, how to go into a store and negotiate the price of a brand new lawnmower, or to be able to go to church and have a conversation with a parishioner sitting next to you, or going to the hospital and talking to someone that's taking care of payroll for an ailment that you have. It's more than book smarts, it's street smarts as well. We have to have an education system that provides our students a well-rounded education, not just how to graduate from high school, not just how to get into an Ivy League college, but how to just walk down the street every day and talk to a police officer and give them their view of the events that may have happened that called that police officer to the curb. So that's the beginning of how we can do that. And I'll just keep going back to it starts in the home. Our parents must take a real interest. Parents, you can't be your kid's best friend. You got to be their parents. Because if you're not their parents, you're going to have a domino effect of issues that you're going to see on the nightly news. So take that extra time to sit alongside your kids. Teach them the math and arithmetic and societal skills that will make them a productive member of society.
Thank you, Ike. Shalon, how can educational systems foster social, emotional, and ethical development?
I like Ike's answer. I would say that, the parental aspect of this is very important. We need parents that are emulating those behaviors. Do we need to send parents or teenagers before they have children to parenting classes? Maybe so, if that is going to help intervene on some of this. But ultimately, one of the main points that I do want to make is that I think that our children need to be safe in our schools. They need to have a safe environment where they can have, the opportunity to show up as their whole self. Kids deal with so much these days, and if they are not in a safe environment for school, then they're not going to exhibit any emotional, social, aspects or behaviors that will be positive. And teaching students core values, I think that's very important. Ethics, judicial behaviors, as well as justice. I think those are all very important behaviors that need to be taught in school and have an understanding that this is how we act, right? The participation of either group projects or participation in sports, I feel like would further support those types of behaviors. If I'm not as a teammate, if I'm not showing up 100%, then I do get the ability to see how that impacts the overall team, whether it is project related or on a sports team. So I think having a multifactorial process that will show students this is how you're expected to act, and if you don't, these are the consequences related to that.
Thanks, Shalon. Jason, you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I love that question. They gave you something to work with there. I appreciate that. That was good. Great question. We're sorely lacking nowadays, and Shalon got me thinking about how this new generation had some difficulty with social skills because they're always texting and with social media and all the pressures that are involved with that. And so the education system has to involve a holistic approach to that. It can't be just about learning your math and your sciences. It's got to be about how do I get along and navigate this world that I'm in with other human beings that are flawed just like I am. But we can't force it, right? I would like to see a shift from free thinking to free thinking individuals rather than they're coming out of an assembly line so they're all cult objects for an ideology. Or future political and social activists, right? That's not something I want to do when I was a kid. I wanted to play sports and play music really loud. I didn't want to be a social activist. I'm not really sure what's the goal nowadays. But give them the tools to think independently rather than be dependent, whether it be on the government or critical thinking, scientific method, school dances, whatever happened to those? Those were fun.
Yeah.
Ethics and morals. we don't necessarily need to be religious, right? I went to a private school, and it was happened to be a Christian school, but I'm not saying it's mandatory for everyone to do that. But it's certainly not a bad thing either. After all, our entire system, our country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. It's just a fact, whether you like it or not. It's not a bad thing. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. It worked quite well. The golden rule: treat others how they will treat you. I think that still applies today, maybe more than ever. In God we trust. Divine providence. George Washington was a big believer in that. If you don't believe it, fine. But, for developing children, they need something to look up to aspire to behave like. They're going to behave as they see. So what do you want to take in place of God or values? Reality TV shows, social media, celebrities, the state? How well is that working for us?
Well put. We've got a moment or two for some go-backs.
I'll build on what Shalon and Jason said. We have to start giving out awards for participation. We have to get back to giving out awards for excellence. If someone excels, you should be rewarded for that. Not just because you showed up and you were on time. You have to put in the work. You have to excel. You have to show that you can do what's necessary, especially in a team environment, to Shalon's point. You're only as strong as your weakest link. I tell my employees that all the time. So don't be the weakest link.
All ships rise.
Yeah.
All right, good go-backs on that. And, we've come to the end of this program. And I want to thank you guys. I know, right? As we close today, I want to thank our guests and all of you joining us in this thoughtful exploration of the issues that shape our nation and our values. Remember, it's through respectful dialogue and a steadfast commitment to our principles that we can navigate the complexities of our times. Stay tuned. Future programs will tackle more consequential issues, including the environment. Goodbye now from the Coffeehouse, where every conversation is a step towards a brighter and more grounded tomorrow.
The Coffeehouse tour has been sponsored by Jiffy Images, residential and commercial real estate photography, and Odyssey America Media. For a printed transcript of the Coffeehouse tour, send $1 and a self-addressed envelope to Dreamshot Films, 4580 Fair Valley Drive, Fairfax, Virginia 22033.